the Mealshake fallacy. In the last 2 years I experimented with Mealshakes. In the last weeks I again found a Mealshake, a custom Mealshake, so one that I make by myself, that seemed to somewhat work reasonably well. But my body composition started to change for the worse. My body fat seemed to increase again. And so I began to wonder why this was. And the answer was fairly obvious. And I then had to realize again what one could call the Mealshake fallacy, that I basically trapped or fell into this trap. And I think it is as follows. The body has multiple nutrient needs. If we take a look at the macronutrients, it's three. It's fat, carbs, as well as protein. Now, in my experience, mostly for my own body, it seems to be the case that if I reduce carbs as well as fat, and I just focus on the protein, then I am somewhat able to reduce my body fat, or at least not increase my body fat. Now, I think of the macronutrient protein as something that needs to be fixed at a given training intensity. So if I have a certain amount of resistance training in a week, then I cannot really reduce my protein without negative side effects. So the one thing I can reduce is basically the rest of the energy intake, which is then fat and carbs. And so I had a certain solution, or a certain basically ratio of macronutrients in this Mealshake. It was about maybe 14 to 17 grams of fat per 100 grams. It was mostly protein powder, 82 grams I think of protein powder, and then also maybe 6 grams of carbs in there. The Mealshake I currently am or have been running on was made out of protein powder, egg powder, and also soup spice. Now these three ingredients, I wanted to keep them as simple as possible, so therefore these three ingredients. Now what I again had to realize is that with a given amount of fat in there, if my body wanted a certain amount of protein, then it would have to take the fat that came with this. And as it also is summer now these days, and it is fairly hot, what I began to notice again is that my body temperature was too high for me to work somewhat properly. So after eating I would have a higher body temperature that often after hours did not go really down, which also seems to be blocking my ability to fall into good quality sleep. So the solution I now have again found is that I reduce the fat intake. And the fat intake, of course, now can only be reduced if I deviate from my otherwise already planned out Mealshake. So if I rely on basically one Mealshake, then my body does not have the option to lever, at least if we take a look at the macronutrients, to lever the macronutrients up and down depending on need. And the same would be true for the micronutrients. If, for example, I only can have tomatoes, so one tomato, let's say, comes always with one cucumber, because comes always with maybe 1/4 of a head of salad, comes always with this and this and this, then if the body has to always accept the whole package, then this might lead to a suboptimal result then, compared to if it is actually able to choose. So if I give myself the option to choose out of all of the vegetable options, let's say, in a given day, I can either choose a carrot or I can let my body choose the tomato. And if the body then chooses the tomato, then what I assume at this point in time is that this is a calculation. And this calculation I don't have much insight into, but what I seem to have experienced in the last couple of years is that if I have a certain selection of foods that I know that are not too altering to otherwise my hunger basically, so they try to not influence my body too much into a negative direction in terms of its hunger signaling, then I can somewhat trust my body to kind of make the right choice. But only if I have additional things with basically system 2 in control, which would be keeping an eye on body composition, keeping an eye on exercise intensity and activity levels, and so on and so forth. In summary, if the body has a certain nutrient need, and I am not able to fulfill this nutrient need by isolating the variable, then I am possibly taking the negative effect of, or have to accept the negative effect of this, then resulting in more energy than my body otherwise would have needed. Therefore my body composition changes then probably for the worse.